Greetings, everyone, and welcome to SpaceWeek Live for this Sunday, February 6th, 2022. So, we had quite a week this week. We've had a trifecta of SpaceX launches, as well as new developments in the James Webb. So, NASA announced that as they continue their three-month process of aligning the James Webb Space Telescope, the first photons of starlight traveled all the way through the telescope's systems and were detected by the Near-Infrared Camera Instrument, or NIRCam. They have a long way to go before all the mirror segments are aligned and the telescope is fully calibrated, but so far the initial results match expectations. As has been the case basically all along the line with James Webb. It's been performing beautifully. The 18 hexagonal mirror segments need to be aligned to within a tolerance of just a fraction of the wavelength of light, just 50 nanometers. To put this in perspective, if Webb's main mirror were the size of the US, then each segment would be the size of Texas, and they would need to line them up to within an accuracy of 1.5 inches. No small feat. Back here on Earth, after, if I can get my stuff queued up here. There we go. Back here on Earth, after multiple delays and scrubs due to weather and one due to the Royal Caribbean cruise ship Harmony of the Seas last Monday, actually that delay was previously. But anyway, last Monday, a SpaceX Falcon 9 finally launched Cosmos SkyMed second generation for the Italian Space Agency. Let's check out the launch.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition and liftoff. In Bosca al Lupo. Go Falcon, go Cosmo.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Now, I had heard a rumor that it was possible that the Harmony of the Seas may not have actually been violating the exclusion zone on that day that they scrubbed the launch, but But in any case, I guess the investigation, which is probably ongoing, will reveal the result of that. But the weather was also very uncooperative in Florida, which is normal for that location. But we got a treat this launch because SpaceX unveiled their raw 4K tracking camera footage of the stage separation through fairing jettison. Now, this was shot from the ground as of the rocket at the edge of space, 70 kilometers up, going 5,900 kilometers per hour. I'll do the imperial conversion in your head for that one. But I don't know that we've ever seen a shot like this before, where we get to see the stage separation from the ground in this level of detail. You can see the RCS thrusters rotating the first stage around. The top of it gets a little toasty, presumably from the exhaust from the second stage. And there we see the, I think it's a cork or some other material ring separating from the nozzle of the second stage. We often see it in the rocket cam view or the nozzle cam view, but and look at that, we see the waves of exhaust coming from the first stage, blasting up against the exhaust from the second stage and fanning out. Very cool. Now if we jump ahead to the fairing separation, about 90 seconds later, the second stage was 155 kilometers up and had accelerated to 6,500 kilometers per hour. Meanwhile, the first stage had, which is way out of frame, had decelerated to 1,300 kilometers per hour, although with the boost back burn, its momentum continued to carry it up to 128 kilometers. So there are the fairings. Now, that's an interesting point of note. Even with the boost back burn, it still continues flying up under its own momentum until until gravity pulls it back down, and then it uses its grid fins to guide its flight back to the pad in this case, which was the icing on the cake, because normally we get drone ship landings, but for this launch we got a pad landing, which we will see here.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
And we heard that call out for entry burn.
Stage 2 FTS has saved.
We heard the call out that the entry burn has completed, and you can see that the engines have shut down on your left-hand screen. That is 2 of the 3 burns. The last burn will be the landing burn. You can see in the background of your left.
Stage 1 FTS has saved.
Vehicles are on nominal trajectories.
Good call outs there, and you can see the land in the background view of the first stage as it's making its way back to landing zone 1.
Stage 1 transonic. Stage 1 landing burn.
The landing burn, wow, incredible views of this landing burn of this first stage. Let's see if we can touch down on landing zone 1 today.
Stage 1 landing like deployed. Stage 1 landing.
Well done. And one thing I did notice is as it was coming down, you could see as the rocket descended from daylight back down into darkness because the sun had just set there in Florida. And so you could see not darkness per se, but twilight, because the sun's light was still, bouncing around an awful lot of atmospheric molecules, the Rayleigh scattering, which gives us our blue skies, which is why we have twilight instead of just daytime and nighttime. But in any case, it was a cool thing to see. Now, not the following day, but 2 days later, we had SpaceX launch number 2. On Wednesday, Falcon 9 launched the NROL-87 mission for the National Reconnaissance Office. This is a spy satellite like all the other NRO launches. So let's check that one out.
T-minus 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff of L-87. Go Falcon, go, go.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
I think he said go goat. I'm not sure what that meant, but there you go. Maybe it was their mascot.
We're now T plus 40 seconds into the NROL-87 mission. Falcon 9 is throttling down in preparation.
Power and telemetry.
Terrain definitely not looking like Florida. I love Vandenberg launches.
Of course, being
The rocket arced off to the southwest, away from land, and into an unspecified trajectory. Now, not to be outdone by the Cosmos SkyMed launch, with NROL-87, we got some gorgeous views of the booster landing back at the pad in Vandenberg. I'll just let this play through.
Here we have a beautiful view. I think that's probably one of the Channel Islands there on the right-hand side of the screen. We can see 2 of the 4 hypersonic grid fins. We deploy those shortly after the stages separate, and those grid fins help steer the vehicle during descent. You will also see that right there, we just saw one, like a puff of white gas. That is nitrogen gas from attitude control systems that help control the vehicle's orientation. So there
See the little semi-ring of ice floating away? That's very likely solid oxygen that was vented from the Merlin vacuum engine, or the Merlin engine, because this is the first stage.
Absolutely stunning views today, both of liftoff and our landing attempt. As I mentioned before, Vandenberg typically has quite a bit of fog, so it's more common to hear a launch than see one from Vandenberg. So for those that were able to catch it, I'm sure it was a stunning sight. We are about 20 seconds away from the entry burn. Again, this burn is the second of 3 burns that we will be performing today. And this burn is designed to slow the vehicle down significantly.
Both vehicles are on a nominal trajectory.
So the booster is now basically coming through the thicker part of the Earth's atmosphere. So we're going to slow its velocity down with this entry burn.
Stage 1, entry burn, startup.
There we can see that entry burn has begun, and this will last for another few seconds.
I don't normally play replays for extended periods like this, but it was just such good footage I had to.
And we can see that entry burn has concluded. The vehicle continues to steer itself for a precise landing back at landing zone 4 at Vandenberg Space Force Base. The next burn we have is the landing burn. During the first stage landing burn, a single Merlin engine, the center engine, will relight and slow the vehicle down.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
If you look closely, you should be able to not only see our landing zone, but our launch site as well.
Stage
Again,
2 FTS has saved.
the landing zone is pretty close to our launch pad. shortly before the vehicle touches down.
Stage 1 landing burn, start up.
All right, we can see the landing burn has begun. Landing zone coming into view for the first stage. Again, this is the first flight for this booster and first landing attempt.
Stage 1 landing leg, deploy.
Boop. And I did neglect to mention earlier, this was a shiny new booster. Well, it was until now anyway. Now it's all sooty. But yeah, this was a lot of times the boosters that we see, the first stage boosters anyway, that we see launched by SpaceX are sooty like this. That's because they've flown before. But this one was brand new. Now, to round off the SpaceX trifecta of launches from this past week, on Thursday, SpaceX Falcon 9 launched Starlink 4.7. This is the 7th batch of the current generation of Starlink satellites with the laser interlinks. I'll go ahead and queue up the launch.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff, Starlink 4.7.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
So this one, as you may have perceived from that previous shot, launched from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center, the most famous launch pad in the world. Now, the CSG-2 launch took place from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, just a few miles away from here. The NROL launch took place from Vandenberg out in California on the opposite side of the country. So these were 3 different launches from 3 different pads. Now, they could have potentially taken place, more than one of these launches could have potentially taken place on the same day, but SpaceX, I don't believe they have yet done that, possibly in order to ensure that mission controls or resources are not stretched too thin, or to make sure they have sufficient personnel available to deal with any issues that may come up. I'm not sure, but so we didn't quite have three launches on 3 successive days, but they came close this time. But the launch was successful, although we did not get a great view of the booster landing. The signal cut out too much to really see anything. And they did end the broadcast before the Starlink satellites were deployed, because they knew that they were going to lose their video signal. So there was, and plus these Starlink launches have become routine enough that, and yes, I understand that space flight is never easy, but nonetheless, the Starlink launches have become regular enough that they felt that since they wouldn't have video coverage of the deployment, that they would just go ahead and end the broadcast and send their updates via Twitter. Now, let's see. Okay, so moving on, Saturday, Russia launched a Soyuz rocket with the Neutron satellite, which is so mysterious that there's actually, I don't have any information on it, nor any footage. So it launched from Plesetsk Cosmodrome in the far north of Russia, which is where they do their military launches from. Of course, Baikonur is the most famous Russian-managed spaceport, but as it is now located in Kazakhstan ever since the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia has to lease that facility from Kazakhstan at great expense, and they prefer to launch their military assets from Russian soil, so they launched them from Plesetsk. Whereas Vostochny, which is far to the east, which is their brand new, well, quote-unquote brand new spaceport built in just the past few years, that is used for primarily commercial launches. But in any case, I really don't have any information on the Natron rocket. I mean the Natron satellite. So I don't know. Maybe some more information on that will leak out over time. But for now, just understand it was a Russian military launch. Also on Saturday, there was supposed to have been a launch of the much delayed Astra Rocket 3 with the latest ELANA mission for NASA and various universities, with 4 small payloads, with 4 small CubeSat payloads. However, it ended up scrubbing even during the broadcast due to, well, initially there were delays due to the weather because there were heavy clouds and high winds, but those subsided, I guess, enough for launch, but they ended up having to scrub anyway because of, quote, a ground asset that was out of service. So there was either a piece of equipment or a sensor that was not responding or not cooperating, and so they did have to scrub that launch. Their next launch opportunity would have been today between 1 and 4 p.m. Eastern. However, the forecast for today was even worse than the day before. So there was a scrub on that one. Now, taking a look further back into space history, today marks the 4th anniversary, if you can believe it, of the first Falcon Heavy launch from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center, where Starlink just launched from. Yes, on February 6th, 2018, the first Falcon Heavy launched with Elon Musk's Tesla Roadster perched atop the rocket and the SpaceX spacesuit-clad Starman mannequin sitting in the driver's seat, as we are all quite familiar with, I'm sure. But so, as you may be aware, Starman was a big part of this channel for a very long time, from May 4th, 2018 through January 2nd of 2022, just a few weeks ago. I streamed a cleaned up replay loop of Starman with music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for almost 4 years. And it was a sort of a central feature of this channel for a very long time, and so Starman is near and dear to our hearts. With that in mind, I wanted to honor this 4th anniversary of the launch of Starman with a special video tribute. So what I did was I took the original Starman video, and then using some very fancy artificial intelligence algorithm software, I enhanced the video to 4K resolution, which looks really good. It's not simply upscaling like you would do in Premiere or whatever. It actually fills in the gaps of the video to make it look like it was always 4K. I mean, it really looks nice. And so I have a very special premiere coming out immediately after this episode of SpaceWeek at 3:45 p.m. Eastern, or 2045 UTC, of the 4th Starmanniversary tribute video, which covers the launch, the journey of Starman, and the whole video is flush with informative captions that tell you what's going on, what's happened, and what's going to happen. So please check it out. I put weeks of work into it, and I think that this is now sort of the definitive, going to be the definitive Starman video, because it looks better and contains more knowledge than any ever before. So again, that's going to be in about 34 minutes, something like that. So hopefully I can fill in the gap between now and then with some more information as well as answering your questions so that we don't have too much of a delay between the two streams, this one and then the Starman premiere. Now, just to be clear, this fourth Starmanniversary premiere video is an uploaded video. So it is a static video, not a static video, but it's not a live stream per se. But what a premiere is, if you're not familiar, on YouTube, is sort of a live viewing of a video. And so there will be live chat. You'll be able to, talk with other people who are watching the video. But it's a one-time thing. Once the premiere is done, that's it. There is no more live chat. The video will just be on YouTube like any other video, and you'll be able to view it at any point, at any time you wish. Now, this Monday also marks the 38th anniversary of the first untethered spacewalk by Bruce McCandless in 1984. Using the Manned Maneuvering Unit, or MMU, he drifted 98 meters, or 320 feet, away from the Space Shuttle Challenger. Now, during the EVA was taken one of the most famous space photos ever, which is this right here. I'm sure you've seen it. It's been on countless posters and elsewhere. But yep, that was Bruce McCandless in his MMU. Now, McCandless is also famous for, in his younger years, having served as Capcom in mission control during the Apollo 11 mission. Challenger, the space shuttle, went on to fly 5 more times successfully before its tragic loss in 1986. The anniversary of which we just observed last week. So, looking ahead to this week, later today at 3:45 p.m., 2045 UTC, is the Starmanniversary, the 4th Starmanniversary video premiere, which I just talked about. So I do hope you'll join us for that. Then tomorrow, Monday, February 7th, at, the launch window is presumed. They have not announced it officially to my knowledge, but I believe the launch window is the same every day. So we're expecting that between 1 and 4 p.m. Eastern Time, or 1800 to 2100 UTC, Astra will launch their Rocket 3 from Cape Canaveral. Now, if I didn't mention before, this will be Astra's first launch from Cape Canaveral. Previous Astra launches, their test launches, were conducted from remote Kodiak Island in Alaska. But I do hope to provide coverage for this launch, but I might be out of town and I may be unavailable. So I will try to bring it to you, but if I can't, then please forgive me. But I will be, if I do stream it, this footage will be coming courtesy of NASA Spaceflight, which, as a reminder, is not NASA, but rather a YouTube and space news organization. But in any case, NASA Spaceflight will be providing the primary coverage of the Astra launch. They're partnering with them, just as Firefly partnered with Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. So in any case, if you can't catch it here, feel free to catch it there. And hopefully they don't have another scrub. Then on Thursday, February 10th at 1:09 p.m. Eastern, 18:09 UTC, is the launch of a Soyuz rocket from French Guiana with the OneWeb 13 mission. This is the 13th batch of OneWeb broadband internet satellites. Sort of competing with Starlink, but not really. And this will be managed by Ariane Space and launched from Guyana, from French Guiana. Now, some OneWeb launches take place from Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Others have taken place from Vostochny in far eastern Russia. But yes, OneWeb always launches on a Soyuz, and it is managed by Arianespace even when it's launched from a non-ESA facility such as Baikonur or Vostochny. Let's see. That is actually it for this week in terms of launches. As always, schedules remain flexible, and so there very well could be additional changes, shifts to the launch dates or times, launches that pop up at the last minute. That we don't get too many of those, but sometimes a launch will get announced like with very little lead time. And just so stay tuned. I'll go ahead and put the link calendar in the chat. All right. So I want to take a moment to thank and welcome our newest channel member, Peter Cortens. So thank you, Peter, for your support. And let's get to your questions. Let me pull those up real quick. All right. Okay. So, scanning the chat for questions. During the intro, Mark Desert asked, "How fast is your faster-than-light spaceship going?" I have no idea. I just I just found the cool visualization and incorporated it into my. I like to rotate the background graphics in the intros because variety is the spice of life, right? And we like our lives spicy. Shivam Singh Sanag asks, "Anyone from Earth?" No, I am not from Earth. Unfortunately, I have amnesia. I don't remember where I'm from. But, all right. Mark Desert can't wait for the first meaningful JWST pictures. It is important to note that these first photons that are filtering into the James Webb Space Telescope, they're not big, pretty pictures. They're just simple bits of data that are being used to calibrate the instrument. So the good pictures won't come for maybe about 4 months. Ian Stobie asks, would they scrub for a solitary paddle border? Well, if the paddle border was detected in the exclusion zone, chances are they would scrub. I mean, if you have a dude, streaking across, the launch facility, on foot, I mean, they would scrub the launch. So if anyone is in the exclusion zone, they're not going to launch when that presents a potential mortal hazard for someone. Although I do like the idea of what someone mentioned, they could have just landed the booster on the Harmony of the Seas, which would have been really epic. So Harmony of the Seas is one of the biggest cruise ships in the world, and I say one of because it's kind of sort of tied with its two sister ships, which are also from Royal Caribbean, or Royal Caribbean, if you want to pronounce it that way. Harmony of the Seas is the longest by like a fraction of a foot, but it's not the most massive, and it doesn't hold the most people. So, it depends on what measure you're using. But in terms of longest, yes, it is the longest cruise ship in the world, but it's not quite the biggest. All right. Now I'm having to scroll down through the messages here real quick, so please bear with me. This Elizabeth Boboshevska says that she's glad she has a 7-hour time difference with the USA, My day ends with raw space as a dessert. That is very kind of you. Thank you. Glad to. That's why I timed SpaceWeek to be at 3 p.m. or thereabouts Eastern time, rather than later in the evening, which would be sort of the time I would expect if I were doing it for myself. But I wanted to make sure that our European friends could participate also. Okay. Yeah, so during the first Falcon Heavy launch, I myself was just sitting at work, and I didn't realize the significance of the launch until I was actually watching it, and it really blew me away, especially with the dual booster landings. Was just incredible. I really would encourage you to stick around and check out the, here, I'll put the link in the chat, the premiere of the 4th Starmanniversary video, which is coming up in about 20 minutes now, 24 minutes, because I think that it'll tickle your nostalgia bone, as it were, and it really is something to see. MVM Motovlog Music thanks me for my hard work. Thank you for coming and participating. Tig compliments me on my haircut. Thanks. It was getting a little shaggy, and for some people that works, but my hair is thick enough still that if I let it grow, it becomes just this fro mop of unmanageable chaos and drives me nuts. Like, it doesn't even matter. I mean, I can wash it, I can condition it, brush it, and it gets this ridiculous epic wave that like looks stupid as hell. so I have to cut it every once in a while. It's kind of like my beard. I let it grow sometimes, and I kind of like the way it looks, but then it drives me nuts, and I just have to get rid of it. So it is what it is. Ian Stobie mentions using the image enhancement software on landings. So one thing that happens when you're enhancing video is when you have something that's moving quickly, like an explosion or like the thrust or exhaust from a rocket, and you try to slow it down, even using advanced algorithms, it's really hard to get a smooth video out of that, because, I mean, the rocket will look great, but the exhaust is going to have weird sort of morphing wavies in it, because or the thrust from the rocket is going to have these weird morphing wavies, just because there's not enough information between each frame to interpolate that smoothly. And so landings would be difficult to get nice, clean, slow motion footage of, unless you're filming it with a slow motion camera, which would be ideal, which some people have done, and kudos to them for it. Raw Space Addict asks, any history note on Apollo 14 today, 51 years ago? Yeah, so I did mention Apollo 14 last week. I did not mention it again today, because this week the Apollo 14 milestone that we have is the splashdown. So they landed on the moon on they launched on January 31st, 1971. They landed February 5th, 1971, which was yesterday. And then the splashdown was on February 9th, which this week will be on Wednesday. And this was with Alan Shepard, Stuart Roosa, and Edgar Mitchell. Command and Service Module Kitty Hawk lunar module Antares. And they spent 9 hours and 21 minutes on the surface of the moon. And they returned 94.35 pounds, or 42.80 kilograms of moon rocks. But there you go. There's your Apollo 14 details. All right. So Iwo Wizanowski asks, when will Progress MS-18 depart and burn up? Now, I know that next week, either late Sunday or Monday, there is a departure from the ISS, and that may be your MS-18. But I would talk about that next week in that Space Week episode. MVM Motovlog Music asks, do I think the cruise ship that caused the SpaceX scrub was fined? So if there was a violation of a NOTMARS, or a NOTMAR, which is a notice to mariners, I should say, similar to the FAA's notices to airmen, there are also notices to mariners, which cover ocean-borne vessels. And if there was a violation of the federal NOTMAR, then it doesn't quite roll off the tongue like NOTAMs. But then, yeah, I would expect there would be a fine. But again, there was a rumor that Harmony of the Seas was actually hovering at the mouth of the channel or whatever, outside the exclusion zone. So who knows? I mean, they'll either get fined or they won't, but I don't really care. I just want ships to stay out of the way so that we can have our launches. All right. Tig, formerly known as Rayhoff, will never ever board a cruise ship. I've been on a cruise ship. They're not really my bag, baby. To quote Austin Powers. Most of the amenities that a cruise ship offers just are not for me. I mean, I don't gamble, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do exercises, I don't really do shows. You know, I will say the shows that they put on a cruise ship, they're very well done, and they put a lot of effort into it. So that's great, but it's not really my preferred mode of entertainment. So it is cool to be far away from land. It's a unique experience just being out on the ocean with nothing around. If you have clear skies, you can get an amazing view of the night sky if you're not blinded by the cruise ship's lights. But yeah, I probably won't go on another cruise myself either. Folkert Cornelis asks, is a high-speed bird strike something the Falcon or any other rocket could survive? And has that ever happened? Well, the thing is, birds fly at pretty low altitudes. Most birds are not going to be thousands of feet in the air. In fact, I mean, I don't want to really look it up right now, but the vast majority of bird flights are within a few hundred feet of the ground. And the rocket itself is a couple hundred feet tall. So, when it takes off, it's exceptionally loud. It's one of the loudest things around. And all of the birds in the area take off and flee because they're afraid of the sound. So I think that the chance of a rocket impacting a bird would be pretty low. Also bear in mind that it takes time to build up speed. Although, I mean, a bird strike, even at, 60 miles per hour or whatever, could potentially do damage. But to my knowledge, I've never heard of a rocket impacting a bird, because I think all the birds get out of the area when they hear that sound of the launch. But if it were to happen, then, let's say there were a confused and deaf, seagull that was hanging out around a couple thousand feet or whatever. I don't know. It's a good question. I think that it could potentially do some damage. You know, I mean, the greatest danger of bird strikes to a jet is if they enter the engine. I mean, if a bird impacts the nose of a jet, it's maybe going to dent it, but I don't know. Rocket launches are not like airplane flights. They're you know, they don't use the same kind of propulsion, and they don't use aerodynamic lift. Although they are definitely subject to aerodynamic forces, which is why winds, either at ground level or at higher elevations or higher altitudes, does affect the go, no-go for launch, because especially with Falcon 9, which is a tall, skinny rocket, it is susceptible to wind. So I don't know, it's a good question. It would be a good question for a SpaceX engineer to, or another rocket. Actually, it'd be a good question for Tory Bruno. It would be more likely to get an answer from him because he's pretty responsive about such things. In fact, I may just ask the man, and he might respond sometime because he's pretty active on social media, and he's not slammed with as much attention as Elon Musk gets. Okay. Oh, Anthony, just Anthony, asks, why hasn't NASA returned to the moon? Always a good question. And the answer is multifaceted, as most realistic answers are. But, you know, toward the end of the Apollo program, we'd already been to the moon multiple times, and there just was no longer the public interest nor the political will to keep spending billions and billions of dollars on the Apollo program, which is why they ended it when they did, Apollo 17. And after Apollo was, well, there was Skylab, which was sort of reusing the last of the available Saturn V hardware. But then the primary focus of NASA was the space shuttle for a very long time, 30 plus years. And the space shuttle was never designed to go outside of low Earth orbit. It was only designed to take humans up into low Earth orbit. And ultimately, the space shuttle was essential in construction of the International Space Station because it was able to lift a lot of the heavy, modules and pieces for the ISS. Would have taken a lot more rocket flights to do it without the space shuttle. But, the space shuttle consumed an awful lot of resources. And meanwhile, society sort of moved on. We had been to the moon. We had checked that off our bucket list. And there just wasn't the interest or the will anymore to invest the resources it would have taken to get us back to the moon. Plus, we no longer had the Saturn V vehicles available. As the decades progressed, the safety considerations of aerospace systems advanced, commensurately. So, and one could say that the space shuttle was actually a less safe vehicle than the Saturn V because, in fact, we had, two mishaps that were the result of not just design imperfections, but also neglect on the part of, folks down on the ground. But yeah, and then once the ISS was under construction, the ISS and the end of the space shuttle program and the continued outfitting and manning of the ISS became sort of the albatross around NASA's neck. And it was a beneficial albatross. The ISS has been wonderful for science and for, international space cooperation, etc. Being the only, long-term orbital laboratory since, Mir, which was much less so. I'm not even sure what they did on Mir, but whether they did much science or what. But in any case, yeah, so here we are many years later, finally with a vehicle in development that can get us back to the moon. We're almost there, even though it's cost way too much and taken way too long because, you know, politics and finances are what they are. But yeah, so hopefully Artemis is completely successful. Hopefully they don't experience any mishaps, especially involving crew, because that would definitely hurt the whole industry. But unfortunately, getting off of this rock of ours is very expensive and takes a lot of energy. And that expense has just ballooned since our systems are so much more complex with so many more moving parts and integrated systems and safety measures. All right. Anthony mentions the seagulls hanging out on the drone ship last year. Was that last year or the year before? But yeah, I do remember that. And then the booster failed to land. So seagulls are kind of a curse, speaking of albatrosses. But different species, but you get the idea. Mark Desire asks if I saw the sci-fi horror movie Apollo 18. I don't think I ever have. Is it worth watching? I mean, I could check it out. I started to watch the I think it's on Netflix. Maybe it's Prime. I forget which. But I started to watch Shatner in Space because, of course, we live streamed the suborbital space flight of William Shatner on Blue Origin's New Shepard rocket a few months ago on this channel. But they produced a documentary about it, and I started to watch it, but I fell asleep because I was too tired. I'll have to go back and try to finish it. All right. So we are about 8 minutes away from the premiere of the 4th Starmanniversary tribute video. I'll take maybe a couple of final questions, and then I'll go ahead and wrap it up so that you all can head over to the premiere, which I will again launch link in the chat for you. Mark Desire says Apollo 18 is not really worth watching. Who was? Oh, it was Jimbo Thunderhawk mentioned he saw men on the moon in 1969, and I said I saw Amazon women on the moon in 1989, but that was an entirely different experience. I should go back and watch that. My memories of it are very vague, but it was a very silly movie, I think. All right, so I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, but that leaves us with just a few minutes until the premiere. So go ahead and hang out over there for the few minutes until it starts, and I will see you on the flip side. And beyond that, I hope to see you in the 1 or 2 live streams we have later this week. And until next week, keep it raw, take care, and I'll see you later.